Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Schlage 35-143. This is what is called an access bow, is what it is. It's an unusual key blank that you don't see very often. Very occasionally, I see someone out in the world that has one of these. I keep them in stock. There's two reasons why you're going to use them. Because you require an access bow blank. Your application is such that you need to provide a key blank that is compatible, or I should say compliant, with the requirements of accessibility. But I can't recall it ever being mandated on a job that I provide an access bow. But that's why this exists. I use these on master keying jobs when I want to visually distinguish the master key from the change keys. Quite frankly, people like to see their master key on a bow like this. And that's sometimes how I'll use this. I'll tell you about a project we're doing now. We are doing a project in the Caribbean. There are 34 deadbolts where this client has their vacation homes. Pairs of doors, very nice wood, beautiful exterior doors. And they've got a Baldwin tubular lock, a grip handle with a deadbolt on the active. And what they're adding to this is a deadbolt up at the top of the door, believe it or not. So they can lock the top of that door, the top of the active door, up into the header. The inactive has bolts going to the sill and into the header. The active door is only latched to the inactive door, so the client's adding a deadbolt at the top, which will lock into the header. Why? They just want to help keep the doors closed in a high wind event, a hurricane. And while the lock isn't windstorm rated, the doors aren't windstorm rated, anything that they're doing isn't windstorm rated, they're just using common sense to help keep those doors secured. And while I don't like the deadbolt that they've elected to use because it's a large deadbolt, it detracts away from the look of the overall situation, it will sure do the job. We could have done it more elegantly with a cylinder operated flush bolt, but this is what the client wanted, and it's very inexpensive. So 34 doors, 34 units. The client wants them all keyed differently, but master keyed. There'll be 4 masters, so I'm going to cut the masters on this blank so that my client can just look at a distance and say, yep, that's the master key. Visual identification. You see someone walking around with this key, they've got the master. That's the bottom line. You don't have to be concerned about it. It's physically a different key, but it's an access bow. This happens to be 5-pin, meaning the length of the blade from the shoulder stop out here is for a 5-pin cylinder. Now you can insert this key blank into a cylinder that's been drilled or prepped for 6 chambers, but it doesn't have the length to engage that 6th chamber. It is nice to use this key blank for its intended purpose, but I would argue that if you don't need this key blank for either of the two purposes, it's compliance with accessibility or visual identification, don't use it. It's a bit of a big honker to have on your key ring and then put your keys in your pocket. That's why I would suggest considering not using it. So let's talk about the keyway now. This is the Schlage C keyway. It's likely the most common or second most common keyway ever of all time. The C, a fun fact, is the opposite of the best A key blank. I forget the name of the gentleman who drew the C key blank. The C broaching or the C profile was an employee of Best Lock. His name may have been Axel something. He drew the A keyway, which is the standard keyway in Best. When he went to Schlage, he drew the opposite of the A keyway, and it's the C keyway, which means if you were to cut this, you could take that end and it should go into a Best cylinder because it's exactly the opposite. Fun fact. Doesn't matter, just a fun fact. This being a C keyway or E or EF or whatever it is, it's got the letter stamped on there. That's nice, makes it easy to identify. So if you're going to keep an access bow, if you don't have a C keyway, you don't have 99.999% of all common keyways. Let's switch to the screen view and we'll take a closer look at some supporting information. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, here's the item we're looking at. There's not much to see here at all, but let's take a closer look at some photographs that we have. That's the key blank, a close-up view of the bow, the backside, and then again showing you the stamped C. They're going to be able to do these, and I'll show you the other keyways, the classic obverse, and likely other blanks as well. I don't see why they wouldn't do these in Everest or Primus or XP or SL, whatever the case is. Just showing you on the side of the thumb side of the key what that milling profile looks like, and then the opposite side. Okay. Now, there's a link below this video, as seen here, to the manufacturer's page. When you click on that, you'll be able to pull up all of the Schlage products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation. There's also the Cylinders and Key Blanks Quick Reference Guide. That's pretty handy. And on here, we're going to be able to look at a couple of things. First of all, the access bow is here. You can do it in 5-pin, in 6-pin, or in a Primus. You'll note that they have this large bow that's here, and it looks a little bit like their old wafer key bows, which are not in the catalog. But speaking of that, let's just, if you were interested in wafer, there's the 1959 wafer lock service manual here. Unless your experience with locks goes back to maybe the 80s, 70s, or 60s, or 50s, you'd probably not bump into these locks very often. I believe Schlage actually still manufactures this wafer lock, but exclusively for export to areas outside of North America, or maybe it's just outside of the United States. Yeah, so it doesn't look like that large bow, but I kind of think of it in that sense. Yeah, this is a service manual. I never learned how to combine these locks. Frankly, I never needed to. They're just way before my time. But I was witness to these being recombinated several times. Anyway, while we're talking about old catalogs, because we're just talking about them, let me also point out the 1936 Schlage catalog is here. We've got a 72, a 1978, we've got a 1982. So old Schlage catalogs are here. Now back to that key blank and cylinder quick reference guide. So you can see that they do this access bow. It's what it's going to look like on the back, and then they can do Primus. There you go. I also mentioned the classic obverse keyways. So in the 35-1435 and 35-1446, you're going to be able to do those classic 7 original, well, the classic obverse keyways. Schlage has lots of keyways. Many of them are not published. C, C, E, 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 F, 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 G, and G. You'll be able to get those access bows. Different keyways is a completely different conversation. I won't dive into that now. But this document really shows you this access bow and the part numbers for the other variants of it. Okay. Obviously, with your key blank, you're going to need to specify a keyway, and most definitely the case with Primus as well. Primus is a side bit milling type of key, which means it has 2 shear lines that you have to satisfy in order to get that key to turn in the cylinder. Not only the shear line here, but the shear line on the side of the blank, which is milled. Other interesting documents on this page, several and many. The full product catalog is here. There are service manuals here. I already pointed out quite an antique service manual, but we've got the Primus service manual. We've got the Everest service manual, and other encyclopedic documents are kept on this page, as well as these archival catalogs that are here as well, generally up in this area. I had accidentally clicked on the 1978 catalog, so if you wanted to see what Schlage was doing 40 plus years ago, here's your catalog. These files are extremely large, so you'll have to be patient with them when they're loading. I generally will do something like, that's just a beautiful deadbolt. I generally do something like this and change the page number and then allow it to load to get there. We have archived this, information for future generations. If you look in our mid-century catalogs from Schlage, you're going to see lots of choices of extremely elegant mid-20th century designs from Schlage. The K-lock was is the predecessor of the L series lock. The G lock, long discontinued, interconnected, had a removable core in it. The H series is interconnected. They just recently discontinued that, and the F series is alive and well. If we went to page 4, we're going to see the A, the D, probably the C, the A, the C, the D, the B, and the E series would be my guess. The catalog's a bit unwieldy, but you can get the concept of how these beautiful designs in the late 70s were available. The Versailles. You're going to need an extended back set for that. Probably 12-inch would be my guess. Or in the center of the door where it might be an 18-inch back set. Delilah. Just beautiful stuff you just don't see anymore. And there is page 4. Again, the A, the B, the D, the E. There is no C series. It was a non-ferrous version of the D series. It may have been discontinued by this time. They used to make a stainless version of their heavy-duty locks. This E grip was discontinued in the 90s, and that was made since the 1950s. A lot of people have these still on their doors. All right, let's wrap up this video on camera. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. So if you have any questions on anything Schlage related, whether it be keys or keying or locksmithing or their locks, anything related to Schlage, I may be able to help. It would be accurate to say that Schlage is the lock line that I'm most familiar with, and I think that is true for the majority of people within my industry. There will be people that will be patently expert with Sargent part numbers, and they're also expert with Schlage. It's just in my career, Schlage's the one that I deal with most, and it's the lock line along with Arrow that I dealt with in the first 5 or 10 years of getting started in the industry, and I think those connections were made deeper. First 5 years of my career, I didn't have the opportunity to sell as many Sargent locks as I did Schlage locks, so I remember those part numbers. I have been, and am extremely fortunate to be a student of a teacher in the national organization ALOA, who ran the master key department at Schlage for probably 15 years, and he is a living, breathing, walking encyclopedia when it comes to the science of locksmithing. And he has allowed me to learn to accelerate and to grow as a person, especially when it comes to locksmithing, by leaps and bounds. His ability to not only share that knowledge about the science of locksmithing, but also the fun fact stories. I know from him, the fact that the C is the opposite of the best A, and many other interesting Schlage stories. Any questions on this Access Bow blank or any other Schlage product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.